Okay, so today we're going to look at test 6 on the McGraw-Hill ACT math. The lowest temperature on a winter morning was negative 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Later the same day, the temperature reached a high of 21 degrees Fahrenheit. By how many degrees Fahrenheit did the temperature increase? So we want to know the difference between negative 7 and 21. Well, that's just going to be 28 degrees. One way to think of that is to use a number line and to kind of just see that you have to move 7 and then another 21. Disregarding sales tax, how much will you save when you buy a $12 video that is on sale for 20% off? So notice they're asking how much will you save. So they want to know the amount of money that's coming off. So really they want you to find 20% of 12. So that's 0.2 times 12. So this is what I call hidden basic percent questions. So 0.2 times 12 and you get 2.4. So $2.40. As part of a school report on the cost of gasoline, Raquel wants to find the average cost of purchasing a gallon of regular unleaded gasoline from local gas stations. She surveys 4 gas stations and finds the cost per gallon of regular unleaded gas from the 4 stations to be this. Using this data, what is the average? Okay, so all they want you to do is the average. So you just take these numbers, 245, 250, 249, and 256, add them up, divide by 4, and you'll find 2.5 to be the average. What is the volume of a cube with edges of 5? So the volume formula for a cube is side to the third power. So in this case it's going to be 5 to the third power. So this could be 125. Okay, solve for A. So we divide by 3. Divide by 3 on both sides. So that crosses this 3 out. This gives negative 7. Add 6. You get negative 1. The price of a cantaloupe is directly proportional. So whenever you have directly proportional, you make a proportion. Okay, so 3 pounds is $3.87. 2.25 pounds is X. So that means that 3X is equal to 2.25 times 3.87. And then divide that by 3. So $2.90. In the figure below, point D, okay, CD is perpendicular. So we do have right angles here. Based on this information, which of the following conclusions can be made? Point C is equidistant from A and B. Well, I could draw point B all the way over here. We don't know about those distances, so you can't draw that conclusion. Segment CD bisects AB. We don't know if these are equal, again. So that's out. Segments AD and DB are equal in length. That's saying the same thing. CDA is larger than CDB. So that's not true. Congruency is true because they're both 90. Alright, so here we would subtract 3x to the left side. That gives this. Add 5 to the right side. So that gives this, and then divide by 3. Okay, which of the following is always equal to this? So let me just rewrite. Let's see. So we could distribute the y. We get 3y minus y squared. Distribute the 5. 5y minus 35. And then we would have negative y squared plus 8y minus 35. Okay. Part of a circle whose circumference is 40. So the circumference of the circle is 40. Arcs of length 4 and S continue to alternate around the circle so that 8 arcs of each length. So there's 8 arcs of length 4 and there's 8 arcs of length S, and altogether those arcs will measure up to the circumference, which is 40. So I can use this to solve for S. Okay, subtract 32. I find 8S is equal to 8, so S is equal to 1. So that's the arc length of those segments. What is the degree measure of the measures of the arc length S? So the degree measure is a little different than the arc length. So the arc length is 1 out of a total of 40 of the total circumference. So you could make a proportion where that's equal to x out of 360 for the arc length of the interior central angle. So we'd have to multiply by 9 here, so it would be 9 degrees. In a poll, 44 people were in favor of constructing a new high school, 58 against, 8 people had no opinion. What fraction of those polled were in favor of constructing? So 44 out of, let's see, 44 plus, 44 plus 58 plus 8. So that's out of 110, and then 44 divided by answer, and that's equal to 0.4. So that's 4 out of 10, or 2/5. On the line segment below, the ratio of lengths AB to BC is 1 to 4. So one way to use ratios is to use x after it, so 1x and 4x. So if AB is 1x and BC is 4x, what is the ratio of AB to AC? Well, AC would be 5x, right? So that would be 1x to 5x, or 1 to 5. If a board 9 feet 6 inches in length is cut into 2 equal parts, what will be the length of each part? So this 9 feet can be converted into inches by multiplying it by 12. Okay, then we can add the 6. That tells us the total number of inches. Divide that by 2, and that will tell us the number of inches for each part. So that's 57 inches. Now we need to convert that into feet. So we divide that by 12. So we get 4 feet, okay, and also 3/4 of a foot. So we're down to these middle 3 choices. Now 3/4 of a foot, we might not know what that would be, but basically what we'd have to do is we'd do 0.75 times 12. That will tell us 3/4 of 12 inches is 9 inches. So that's going to be choice D. The speed of a car exceeds twice the speed of a truck. So car exceeds twice the speed of the truck by 15. So if I take car minus twice truck, that would equal 15, right? Because 10, for example, exceeds 7 by 3, right? So that's the structure. Which of the following expresses the speed in miles per hour of the car? So the car would equal 2t plus 15. The circle shown below has a radius of 5. Okay, so for example, this segment here would be 5. If C marks the center, what is the length of the segment CZ? Right, xy is 8, so this would be then 4. It would be half of 8. This would then be 3 via Pythagorean theorem, or 3, 4, 5 triangle. So CZ would just be 3. What is the value of the expression when x is equal to -2? So we could plug -2 in. So that would give us -8 times 2, -16. -2 squared would be +4 with a negative in front. -2 times 3 would give -6. Okay, so we get -26 from those 3 negative numbers, and a +5, so they battle it out, and the answer would be -21. What is the next term after -1/3? So the rule here is, it seems that we're going to divide by 3 and change the symbol. Divide by 3, change the symbol, divide by 3, change the symbol, divide by 3, you would get 1/9, change the symbol, you would get plus. On the blueprint for Roger's house, okay, this is going to probably be a proportion question. 1/4 of an inch represents an actual length of 1 foot. 1/4 inch represents 1 foot. What is the area in square feet of a rectangular living room, which is 3 inches? Okay, so first we'll convert the 3 inches to make that x feet. So 1/4 x equals 3. So take 3 and divide it by 1/4, or multiply it by 4 in other words, and we'll find 12. So x would be 12. That's the first dimension. Now we need to get the other dimension. So 4 1/4, 4.25 goes here. So again, we need to multiply that by 4. 4.25 times 4. We get 17 for this one. So the area would be this times this. We get 204. Now it's very important for these kind of questions to convert each dimension separately and to not convert the area after multiplying. The reason for that is if you were to convert after multiplying, when you multiply inches times inches, you get inches squared, right? So then let's say for argument's sake you got 10 inches squared, and now you want to go into feet, right? So the conversion between inches and feet is 1 foot is 12 inches, right? But now you're going from inches squared, you want to get to feet squared. So you'd actually have to square this conversion factor. Okay, and that's a step that a lot of people forget. So it's better to do each dimension separately and then find the area. If m is greater than 0, if m is greater than 0 and n is less than 0, then m minus n is, okay, so pick a number for m. So how about m could equal 1, n is less than 0, so n could equal negative 100. M minus n is what? So 1 minus negative 100, it's always going to be positive, right? Because if you're taking the negative of n, and n is already negative, that means it's going to become positive. So this part is positive, and m is already positive, so you're combining two positive numbers. Alright, so, okay, so if x plus 2/3 equals 8 over 21, then x equals what? So all you have to do is take 8 over 21 and subtract 2/3. So you do that in the calculator. 8 over 21 minus 2 over 3 equals, and that's your answer. Now you need to do math fraction enter. Negative 2 over 7. What is the slope of the line given by this equation? So what we would do here is we'd want to isolate for y. Okay, so we subtract 3x, both sides. 4y is negative 3x minus 12. Divide by 4. Okay, y is equal to negative 3/4 x. So the slope is just this here, negative 3/4. The length of a side of a square is represented by 3x minus 2. Which of the following represents the area? So this is on both ends. So we can then multiply those together. You can use FOIL. So first would be 3x times 3x. That would be 9x squared. Outer would be 3x times minus 2, so that's minus 6x. Inner is another minus 6x. And last would be positive 4. So you get 9x squared minus 12x plus 4. So that's choice K. Which of the following is a polynomial factor of this? So we can do trinomial factoring here. So the first symbol drops down into this position. The second symbol, being negative, means different than the first symbol. So we would get a plus there. Now we look at factors of 24. We want them to differ by 2. So 6 and 4 are the best option. Now we want a t-chart. Well, we actually just want the factors. So we could stop here and choose B. In this equation, r equals this. K represents a positive integer. As k gets larger without bound, the value of r does what? So basically, as k increases to be bigger and bigger number, let's say it's equal to 1 million, then you have 4 over 1,000,002. So basically, when you have a big number on the denominator, that means that the actual quantity is small, right? So r is going to get smaller and smaller. So closer and closer to 0. What is the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit of the location with an average temperature of 25 Celsius? So they want us to plug 25 in for Celsius. So 25 over 5 is equal to just 5. 9 times 5 is 45. 45 plus 32 is 77. The length of a rectangle is 5 inches longer than the width. The perimeter is 38, and another way to express perimeter is twice length plus twice width. What is the width in inches? So what you could do is plug this in for L. So you would get 2 times 5 plus W plus 2W is 38. So that's 10 plus 2w plus 2w is 38. 4w equals to, if you subtract 10 you get 28, so w is 7. Double check that they're asking for the width. What are the solutions of x if this equals 0? So there's a few ways you could do this, but the easiest way is probably just try these choices. So if we plug in 3, we get 27 minus 6 minus 21, and that works. So since 3 works, I can eliminate anything that doesn't have 3 in it. So now I could try whatever one's easier to try out of these two. I would try negative 7. Negative 7 squared is 49 times 3 minus, this is going to become plus 14 minus 21. And that's not going to equal 0. So D would be the better choice. In Suleima's geography class, all tests count equally. So far, Suleima has taken 2 of the 3 tests in geography this marking period and earned scores of 88% and 79% respectively. What is the minimum score Suleima needs on the 3rd test to have an average of 87? So she's got an 88 and a 79 and some unknown 3rd score. When you divide that by 3, you'll get the average. She wants an average of 87. So this is our formula. So again, the average formula is average equals sum over number. So the number is 3 tests. The sum is all 3 added up, including the missing one. And the average is going to be 87. So we can just move the 3 across the equal sign to here. Okay, times that into the calculator. So 87 times 3, 261. Then we should subtract 88, and we could subtract 79. So that gives you 94. Alright, so a to the b equals m, and c to the 2b is equal to n. Then what does m times n equal? Well, if we multiply the right sides, we'll have to multiply the left sides. So it would equal a to the b times c to the 2b. Now another way to write that, since both, well, ac squared raised to the b would work, because we can sort of factor out a b in a way. Since a is being raised to the b and c squared is being raised to the b. So that should match choice A. What is the area in square inches of a circle with a diameter equal to 12? Diameter is 12, radius is 6, area is pi r squared, so that's 36 pi. Miss Hatley's foreign language class student must pass the written and oral exam. In the past, 85% of her students passed the written, and 70% of those who passed the written also passed the oral. So basically 85 and 15 is the first split from 100, and then from the 85 split, 70 and 30, right? So this is the group that we want. We want 70% of 85% of 100. So 70% is 0.7, right? Of means times 85% is 0.85. And then of means times 100 students. So that would be 59.5 students, so 60 is close. If the sine of A is 3/5, which of the following could be the tangent of A? So when they don't give you a quadrant, you can put it into the first quadrant. So here's your angle A. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And so we always make a reference triangle, we draw it to the x-axis. Yeah. The missing side here is going to be 4, because it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. The tangent is opposite over adjacent, so it's going to be 3/4. Okay? And yeah, we're in the first quadrant, so it's positive. If x is any number other than 3, okay, so the x minus 6's right away can cancel. And now these look like they can almost cancel, but one of them is the reverse of the other. So when you have that situation, you can cancel them and get -1. So just to prove that, let's see what happens if I multiply by -1 on top and bottom. The difference is I'm going to let the -1 absorb into the bottom. And I'm going to keep the -1 up on the top. So this will become -3 plus x. And another way to write that is simply x minus 3. Then they can cancel, right? So this equals what? So this is simplifying radicals. one hacky way that you could do it is to put both into the calculator and then put all the choices into the calculator. But I'll show a better way. So you can take a square root of, for example, 9 times 3, and then take the square root of 9 to be 3, so you get 3 rad 3. With 48, you can make it 16 and 3, and then you can take a square root of 16 to get 4 rad 3. If you add those together, you'll get 7 rad 3. Triangle ABC is similar to XYZ, so that means it's going to be a proportion. AB is 5 inches long, BC is 8 inches long. So if you want, you could draw it out, ABC, and then you could draw XYZ. Okay. AB is 5. Notice I did it in the same way, ABC, XYZ. So AB is 5, BC is 8, alright, and AC is 3. If the longest side of XYZ is 20, so that would be this side, what is the perimeter in inches of XYZ? So to get the perimeter, well, what I could do is find the perimeter of this one, which is going to be 5 and 8, 13, and 3, 16, and see what the proportionality constant is. So actually, yeah, so I would have to compare 8 with 20. So compare 8 with 20, and then I'll compare the perimeter of this one with the perimeter of this one. And that should do the trick. So 8x is equal to, this will be 320, and then divide. So 320 over 8. You get 40. Okay, if AB is 6, so that's this. What is the area of the shaded region? Okay. Let's see if they give anything else. So it's a square. Okay. Alright. Oh yeah, the x and the 2x, right. So that means this would also be x. This would be 2x and x and 2x and x and 2x. So the total is 3x. Okay, 3x has to equal up to 6, so x has to equal 2. Right, so this would be 2, and then 2x would be 4. So 2 and 4, we could use Pythagorean theorem to find this side. So 2 squared plus 4 squared is 4 and 16, so it's 20, which would make this radical 20. So its area would just be 20. Alright. What is the degree measure of angle ABD? So ABD is here. Alright. Yeah, AB is congruent to BC. So these are equal, which makes these base angles equal. Okay. Also, yeah. So I'm going to go right ahead and say 45 pretty quickly here. Because, well, first of all, this is an isosceles triangle, which means it's symmetrical. The fact that this is a diameter means that this whole angle would be 90 degrees. Right? Because this is an inscribed angle that opens up to an arc of 180 degrees. So the angle will be half the arc, so it will be 90. Then this BD must bisect due to symmetry, right? So then it's 45. In the standard XY coordinate plane, what are the coordinates of the midpoint? So midpoint, we would just take an average, right? So we're taking an average of -1 and 2. So we combine them together, -1 plus 2, divided by 2. That's your x coordinate, 0.5. So already we know it's J. Maria posted a time of this. How many miles per hour did she run? So we need to convert this into hours, right? So if you think about it, it's 37 minutes out of 60, because there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So 37 divided by 60, that would be this fraction, or decimal. Now if you did 29 out of, it would require 3600 seconds to be 1 hour. So it's plus 29 out of 3600. So you get this as your decimal of what fraction of an hour that you completed. Okay, So 5 miles in this many hours, right? So she did 5 miles in 0.624 hours. So that's miles per hour. So you have to just do 5 divided by answer. And that gives you 8. For the two functions f and g, tables of values are shown below. What is the value of g of f of -1? So we can start with f of -1, meaning we have to plug x equals -1 into the f function to see what the output is. So here's x is -1. Here's the value of the f function at that point. So that's equal to 2, this whole thing. So now we just have to find g of 2. So when x equals 2, what is g? So here's x equaling 2. G is going to be 3. For positive real numbers x, y, and z, which of the following expressions is equivalent to this? Alright, so with this one, you'd usually want to find sort of a common denominator with these exponents. So I would go with 4/8, and I would go with 6/8, and I would go with 5/8. At that point, you can then say this is like having x to the 4th to the 1/8, right? And same for those. So you could say y to the 6th and z to the 5th all to the 1/8, because that 1/8 will get distributed. So then you could rewrite that as the 8th root. The 8th root of x 4th, y to the 6th, and z to the 5th. The formula for the area of the trapezoid is this. Which of the following is an expression for B1? So the first thing is, whenever you have this sort of over 2 thing, the typical way that I deal with that is to just put it underneath like this. So the 1/2 turns into a divided by 2. So our goal here is to isolate B1, so we would move the 2 across the equal sign diagonally. Then we would move the h underneath. That unlocks the parentheses, and then we could subtract the B2 over. So 2a over h minus B2. So that's going to be answer choice. Which one? Let me see here. Yeah, that's going to be F. Which of the following is the closest estimate of this truck's predicted rate of gasoline use in miles per gallon? Well, let's see. We went 100 miles, 5 gallons, so that's going to be 20 miles per gallon. Okay, so when you're seeing what the solutions are, you can just see where the x is getting crossed. So I can see the two solutions, so that's two real solutions. If it were imaginary, it would be something like this, where it doesn't hit the x-axis at all. Alright, if absolute x equals this, then what is x? So with this one, the easiest way is to just plug in. So if you plug in 0, you get 0 equals 0 plus 12. That's not true. 6 equals 6 plus 12. That's not true. -6 equals -6. Yeah, this one's going to work, right? Because if you take absolute -6 equals -6 plus 12, what's 12 minus 6? That's 6. Absolute 6 is also 6. Which fraction lies exactly halfway between these? So to do this, you would take an average. Average 1/3 and 1/2. You have to add them together, divide the result by 2. And you get this, math fraction enter, you get 5/12. When entering information about the budget of her charity ball, Laura records an expense of $20. However, she accidentally enters the $20 as income instead of an expense. The balance of the charity ball budget now shows what? So whereas she was supposed to put a -20, she was supposed to subtract 20, she actually added 20 instead to the ledger amount x. So if you use a number for x, let's say 100, so 100 take away 20 is 80, 100 plus 20 is 120. So the difference between these is $40, right? So it doesn't show the correct amount, it shows 40 different. So 40 in which direction? Well, since it was an expense, she was supposed to subtract it, so this is what it's supposed to be. but this is what it's actually. So it's actually too high. So choice E. Rebecca is trying to schedule volunteers to help at a school carnival. There are 5 one-hour shifts to be filled by 5 different volunteers. So this is one of these situations. How many different arrangements can the schedule have? Well, for this first shift, you have 5 people to choose from. For this second shift, since you can only have one and only one, you have now 4 people to choose from. Let me see, is this correct? Or can I repeat the same person? 5 one-hour shifts to be filled by 5 different volunteers. Okay, so yeah, I can't use the same person, so now that person's out and I have 4 people left. 3, 2, 1. So it's just 5 factorial, right? 3 and 2 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 times 4 is 120. Alright, we want to find the distance between these 2 points, find the change in x. So you can easily think of -1 and 4, see that they're on opposite sides of 0. So you have to move once and then 4 more times, so that's 5 times. That's your change in x. Your change in y, yes, you're crossing 0, so it's going to be adding those 2 numbers, 12. So you have 5, 12, and to finish the Pythagorean triple, you would need 13. So that's going to be your distance. Now, if you didn't know that part, you could do a Pythagorean theorem with 5 and 12, because those are the 2 sides of the triangle. Your change in x and your change in y, and the distance makes the hypotenuse. Okay, so they give us a volume formula for a cylinder, and they give us the dimensions. Let's see. If a tank or trunk has a tank as shown below and is filled with water, then what is the weight in pounds of the water? Well, first let's find the volume. So the volume is pi r squared h. So that's going to be pi times 1.5. Notice the radius would be 1.5, not 3. So we could do 1.5, and we can square that, and then we can multiply that by 10 and multiply that by pi. So we get 70.7 effectively for the volume, and that's going to be measured in, what is it, cubic inches or cubic meters, right? Meters cubed. Good. Now 1 cubic meter of water weighs approximately this many pounds, so we can now set up a proportion. 1 meter cubed weighs 2205. Okay, 70.7 meters cubed weighs x. So we have to multiply 70.7 times 2205. Right, that gives us 155,000, which is choice G. What is the area of the original triangle? Okay, so we have a similar triangle situation here. Anytime you have more than one triangle in a picture, it's going to be similar triangles, right? And so in this case we have these 2 overlapping triangles. This one has measurement 4. This one, the total side length would be 16. So it's a 4-to-1 ratio between the 2 triangles. So you might mistakenly think that the area would be in a 4-to-1 ratio, but that's not actually the case. Because when you look at the area formula, base height over 2, it has 2 parameters, base and height. So since area is directly proportional to both the base and the height, then if you are applying a change to one of those, actually in this case you're applying a change to both of them. So you're actually quadrupling both the base and the height. So you're changing it for 4 base and you're changing it for 4 height. So then if you rearrange this, right, this is the new area prime. So you'll get 16 base times height over 2. So it's 16 times the original area of the smaller triangle. So the smaller triangle has an area of 8, so now our answer would be 16 times 8. Figure below is a regular hexagon. What is the measure of one of the interior angles? Okay, so there's a few ways you could attack this. The first way is you can know the sum of the interior formula. So for a triangle, the sum of the interior is 180. For this figure here, rectangle, 360. Right? For a pentagon, it is 540. So the rule is you have to add 180 each time. So if I add another 180, I'll get 720 for a 6-sided figure. And hex means 6, right? So we know the total is going to be 720. Then we could divide that by the 6 angles that are inside, and we get 120 each. Yeah, 720 over 6. It is estimated that from the beginning of 1993 to the end of 1997, the average number of CDs bought by teenagers increased from 7 to 15. So anytime they give you like years and then like an output, you can always kind of treat it as X and Y. So the X will be sort of 1993 and then another 1997, and the output here is going to be 7 and 15. During the same time period, the average number of video games purchased by teenagers went from 6 to 18. So they're giving you like another Y that's going from 6 to 18. Assuming that in each case the rates or purchase are the same, in what year did teenagers buy the same average number of CDs and video games? Okay. So we can actually figure out the slope for each one, right? So the slope would be change y over change in x. So the change in y for y1 is going to be 8, okay, and the change in x would be however many years passed, which looks like 4 years. So the slope would be 2. Now the change in y here would be 12 over that same 4. That would be 3. So that's how much it increases by each year, right? So if we were to fill in the sort of blank years, right, so it would start at 7, and then it would go to 9, 11, 13, 15. This one would start at 6, and it would go to 8, 10, sorry, we're supposed to go by 3s here, right? So it would go to 9, 12, 15, 18, is that right? Yeah, so this year they have the same amount, and that's the next year after 93, which would be 94. What are the two solutions for x in this situation? Okay, so there's a few ways we can attack this. One of the ways is to try and plug these in and see what you get, if it works out. So we could try that. So let's see, plug in 5b in for x. So we'd get 5b squared minus 45b squared equals 4 5b. So this would be 25b squared minus 45b squared, so that's negative 20b squared, equals 20b squared. Well, that's not true, right? So 5b and anything with it is out. So that was kind of a bad choice on my part because there's only one thing that has 5b in it. Alright. Well, let's try 15b because that has two things in it, right? So if we do 15b squared, that would be 225b squared. And then minus 45b squared equals 4 times 15, so that would be 60b squared. Let me see, did I do that calculation correctly? Okay, so that's not true either. So 15 is out. Alright, next let's try 9. So 9 squared would be 81b squared minus 45b squared equals 9 times 4, 36b squared. So 81 minus 45, is that equal 36? Let's check. 81 minus 45. Yeah, that one works. Which of the following is equivalent to the mathematical expression a times b minus c for all real numbers? Okay, well, one way you could do it is you could distribute the a, get ab minus ac. So that's what choice number 2 says. So that one works. Anything without 2 has to go. What else could we do? Well, you could put the a at the end, like 3 does. Okay, because then you could, yeah, ab minus ac again. And let's see, I can also switch the order of these, ca, ba, right? But what I can't do is I cannot switch the signs of both, making this negative ba and positive ca. And that's what this one does. So that is actually the negative version of what I want. So that's out. Okay, so we have to simplify. So let's see, tangent is really sine over cos, right? So let's see, cos, well, okay, there's an even easier way. So when you look at cos over sine, that's equal to cotangent. And when you have cotangent over tangent, that's just 1. If A is inversely proportional to B, so that means that their product is a constant, A1, B1 equals A2, B2. When A equals 36, B is equal to 12. What is A when B is 48? So we could divide by 48. And 12 over 48 is 1 over 4. 36 over 4 is 9. For which of the following values of C will there be two distinct real solutions to this? Okay. Well, if we want two solutions, and they're both distinct and real, then we could use discriminant. So discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So let's list out a, b, and c. B is 16, sorry. A is 5, B is 16, C is just C. So b squared would be 16 squared minus 4 times A times C. We'd like for that to be greater than 0, because that would make the two solutions both real. So 16 squared is 256 minus 20c greater than 0. So if I add the 20c to the other side, it's 256 is greater than 20c. Divide by 20, and I'll find that c, let's see, divide 256 by 20, 12.8. So 12.8 is greater than c, so c would have to be less than 12.8. So that means it could equal 12, or it could equal 3. So is there two possible solutions here? Well, here's a way that I could check it. So I could plug in 12 for c. So we'll go 5x squared plus 16x plus 12. And I'll graph that. And I might have to adjust the zoom. So in this case, I'll go zoom 0. It'll think that I want to see this, but I don't exactly want to see that. I want to zoom out. I'd like to see where it crosses, if anywhere. So it looks like it might cross. Let's zoom out again. What's going on here? Yeah, this is looking like a hyperbola. Did I type it in wrong? Yeah. Okay, I think I typed in the wrong spot. 5x squared plus 16x plus 12. Graph. Okay, and zoom 0 again. Right. So it looks like it might be going through. Let me adjust a little bit, so I'll zoom out so I can see clearly. And now I'll zoom in where I think it's crossing. Somewhere around here. So I will zoom to enter. And maybe one more time. Zoom to enter. So it certainly does seem to be crossing, but it's kind of hard to tell. Now what I'll do is I will just change this to a plus 3 and see if this also seems to cross. Yeah, so I think that this is actually an error in the book, that this is both valid solutions. If the formula of a cube is 64, the volume, so that means that volume is side cubed. So if side cubed is 64, then the side length would equal 4. Alright, they want to know what is the shortest distance from the base to the center. So to me, that's going to be half of the vertical. So that's going to be half of a side length, which would be 2. What is the slope of a line that is perpendicular? So what we could do is solve for y. So we subtract the 5x to the other side, so making it negative 5x plus 17. Then we divide by 8. So the slope of this thing is negative 5/8. So then to find a perpendicular, we'd have to take a negative reciprocal, and we would get 8/5.